During a trip to Montreal, we ran into him in a pub on a rainy day. His name was Sax. He was a character, to say the least. He was a retired Canadian special ops vet that had a love for Queen Elizabeth II. He said at one point that he assassinated for the Queen. He told us stories of his time in the military. This went on for a couple of hours, of him just talking about himself and his life. One intriguing story that he told was when he went up north to northern Quebec, to Zec Onatchiway for a fishing trip. The area is very rugged and equipped with vast forests and lakes. Not too many roads intertwined in the national park. He was meeting an associate of his to go fishing. His name was Karkik. He was an Inuit elder from the area. They both met each other at his cabin. They didn't talk much, but they preferred it that way. Sax did most of the talking when words were exchanged. Sax arrived at the cabin around 9 a.m. Karkik was already there. He had been there for almost a week. Later that evening, they set out to one of the many lakes that surrounds them. Nothing out of the ordinary occurs that night. As the sun goes down, they head back to their cabin. Early the second morning, they set out to the same lake they were the night before. They both agree, in the evening, they will try a different lake. The lake they decided to try was much larger, and 6 miles north of their cabin. As they're floating in the boat, quietly, they hear wolves in the distance howling. The pack sounded like it was 6, maybe 7 wolves. Sax howls back at them to get a better gauge of their numbers. The pack howls back, but in greater numbers than Sax thought. About 30 minutes later, they notice the sounds of the forest have stopped, and they feel as if they're being watched. They had a boat full of fish, and they were sure many of the animals could smell it. They caught enough for that day, and decided to call it a night. They row their boat to shore and hear movement in the tree line. Sax adjusts his eyes. Right before they get off the boat, Karkik pokes himself with one of the lures and hollers in surprise. After that, they hear a loud growl. Then, they see many eyes shine. Karkik slowly pushes the boat back into the lake. One of the wolves steps out into the darkness, but luckily, they're already about midway through the lake. The pack follows them downstream. They get to a spot where a small island divides the river. They go left, breaking off from the pack. After drifting downstream, they go on to the other shore. They leave their boat and head back to their truck. They don't get that far. They hear one of the wolves howling behind them. And then another one to their left. They know they have to pick up the pace. They don't know how far away the pack is. They weren't about to give up the fish that they caught that day. And they knew that the fish would make it easier for the wolves to track them. The wolves surround them. Sax takes out his knife. the wolves lunges at him, knocking him down and dropping his knife. Zec struggles, holding the wolf by its fur. He reaches out with his right hand. The wolf springs back and then lunges down. He raises his knife, and the wolf bites down on the blade. It retreats quickly. Zec gets up and keeps a safe distance from him and the pack. One of the wolves jumps out of the fog and onto his back, biting down on his right shoulder. He's able to fight this one off. He said he fought off 4 wolves, while his friend Karkik looked on. There were more stories that he told. I wasn't sure where the embellishment started and the truth began, but who knows? He might be telling the truth.